Hello everybody, Richard Hines here again, this time with this presentation, the prioritization wheel exercise steps. So in this particular recording, I will be outlining the steps of this exercise, which we call a coaching exercise, sometimes a coaching process, known as the prioritization wheel exercise. You may already be familiar with a variation of this particular exercise known as the life balance wheel, sometimes called just the balance wheel for short. That is a variation that is not unique to Erickson. It's common in the world of coaching. However, here at Erickson, we really appreciate the power of this particular exercise for any kind of outcome that requires prioritization. So as an application of this particular coaching exercise, we use it when we have a client who is requesting as an outcome for the session, as part of the coaching agreement, to be empowered to take the next best action steps for a major project or goal or outcome or event. This is, of course, part of the Solution Focus Essentials course that you are in. Once again, the prioritization wheel exercise accomplishes just what it says it does. According to the ICF, one of the number one topics that show up in coaching is dealing with overwhelm. And what that really means is that you have a client or a coachee who is overwhelmed with the amount of steps they have for a particular project or goal or event or something big or big to them. And because of the overwhelm, they might even go into some kind of paralysis and not know where to begin. So if you have your client, your coachee at the beginning, having something on their plate, they're complaining that they don't know where to start, where to begin, and they would like, as a result of your conversation with them, your coaching conversation, to be able to know what the next steps are or the sequence of steps that they can take to accomplish their major goal, then this is most likely the coaching exercise for them. So you see in the graphic before you, it does say 7 steps. Before we get into the steps, will emphasize here that these are guidelines. These are not rules. In other words, you're not mandated to follow these steps to the letter. You can improvise with them. You can be flexible. You can bring in other tools, components of other exercises, coaching exercises in the flow of the conversation you had with your prioritization wheel. You can even reverse some of the steps, if that makes sense. It all comes down to what the coachee's contract is with you, what the outcome is, the agreed upon result. So here we have 7 steps, and typically, as it says here, we may begin with just having the client list, and you can write them down, list all the various actions that are on their plate or categories of focus and attention as part of their project. They're brainstorming, they're releasing it so that they have it out of their mind, is listed. And then you can move to the next step, which is to draw the circle. Now, before we get into the circle, once again, and right here is an example of where you might do things in a different order. You may draw the circle first, and then have the client elicit all the various actions or components of their project that's taking up their attention. So typically we divide the wheel, it's like a pie, into 8 sections. Now, again, there's no mandate here. It could be 6, it could be 10, it could be 9. And even during the course of the coaching conversation, let's say you've done 8 segments, another one comes up into the client's attention, she or he expresses it to you, you might add another one, like a 9th segment. Once we have the wheel drawn, now I will say a bit more about the wheel before we move into step 3 here. It is essential that your client sees the wheel that you're drawing. So if you're using the virtual Zoom environment or something similar, you use the whiteboard that they can see it, or you draw it on a piece of paper that they can see it, so their eyes and your eyes are both on that particular visual image. We call this whiteboard coaching. And what's so valuable about the whiteboard coaching aspect is it assists the client to go into a coach position, that is a detachment from all of those overwhelming actions, and it reduces the emotional content that could be a nuisance for them, that could be causing the overwhelm. So it produces a nice opportunity for them to look in a detached, dissociated way at their project. Another alternative, if you have a client that really likes to be hands-on, you can have them draw the wheel, as long as your attention and their attention's on the wheel and less on each other as part of the dynamic of this particular experience. So the next step is to rate each of the categories around the wheel, each of the actions or each of the segments. And you draw a line that corresponds to that particular rating. So this is really a scaling question. It is a scaling question. So you may ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely satisfied with that particular action right now, that particular element of your project, and 1 being very little, where are you at? And the wheel, the perimeter of the wheel, the rim of the wheel represents 10 out of 10, and the center represents 1. So here we have an example of a line representing 7 out of 10. And we go around the wheel asking the same question with each of the categories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with that particular area, category, action? So then we just continue to draw. So there's a visual representation. It's also nice to put the number of the rating so that that's very clear. And we can also, if you're able to do it online, it's easier to do with pen and paper, to fill in the area between the line and the center, so there's even more visually obvious what the category ratings are. So once all the segments of the wheel have been rated on a scale of 1 to 10. And an example I gave is on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of satisfaction. Then we can move to the next step. Now, before we do that, it doesn't have to be satisfaction. That's the standard. That's the typical rate that we are asking about. It could be the level of priority. It could be the level of completion. That's a nice one as well for prioritization, among other things. So once the wheel has been drawn, and I do say this can go rather quickly. This can be a very quick and elegant coaching conversation. The next step is just for the client to reflect on the filled in wheel, like just to have an overview of it. And you may ask something like, well, okay, now all the categories are filled in and have all been rated. As you look at the wheel, what do you notice? What comes up for you? It's just a very general open-ended question. And they may have some insights already. It's quite interesting what they might say. The next step is to ask what we call a pivotal question as a way of really getting the client to prioritize. So the step says, choose the most impactful category. And what we are actually wanting to ask the coachee is to choose a category or a section of the wheel that has the most impact on the entire system. Because we have this wonderful visual system now of the client's particular project or area of concern. The question may sound like this. All right, so as you look at the entire wheel, and if you were to choose 1 or 2 of those areas that has the greatest impact on a positive way on the entire system, on all the other segments, which area would you choose? Which action would you choose? And of course, you let the client answer. Now, what's really powerful about that question is that they begin to appreciate that there is a system and it's not mutually exclusive. So if they put attention on one area, it might have a positive impact on other areas. So let's say they chose the area that is rated as 4, that's between, let's say 1:30 to 3 o'clock, if this was a clock. And you can see I put a star there just to emphasize that that's the chosen area. Put a couple of arrows because that nicely leads to the next question, which is to get action steps that serve to bring up the level of satisfaction or whatever you rated their priority, the level of completion on that particular chosen category. So the question might be like this. Okay, so you've chosen this area here. What would be 1, 2, or 3 action steps that if you were to complete them would raise that level just 1 notch up, just 1 level up from 4 to a 5, or a variation of that type of question. So you're eliciting action steps that will serve to bring up the level of satisfaction or the level of completion or priority on that particular chosen action area, etc. And then you're ready to complete the rest of the coaching arrow. This nicely segues into confirming action steps. Now, while you've got the wheel up in front of them, you can also ask that third planning question, and how would you stay committed to those particular action steps? That's a variation on that planning question. What other action can you take to ensure that you complete these particular actions that will assist you in that way? So since I mentioned the arrow, it's a good time to visually show how this nicely fits into the arrow. So here we have a slide that says, using the prioritization wheel exercise to create an experience. So of course you start with cultivating trust and safety, establishing rapport. You can't really move forward if you don't have rapport. Then you establish the coaching session agreement, and the wheel is now used as part of the creating experience. And fundamentally what you're using the wheel for here is the how might you get it? What are the actions that would assist you to get X? And how might you stay committed to that? And even asking how would you know you got it in a more chunked down way on the level of action. How would you know you completed those steps? These are lovely questions. You can move right into actions, confirming the actions they will take between now and the next coaching session. Ask for the value of the session, and then show your appreciation. And there you have it. That's how it fits into the coaching arrow. I did mention that a variation of the prioritization wheel exercise is a life balance wheel. Simply put, instead of the elements or components of a project, you use the wheel to categorize and then rate the satisfaction into general areas of one's life. This is a nice variation of the prioritization wheel to use as part of the discovery or intake orientation session, the very first session of your coaching relationship, whether it's 6 months or so. You would use a wheel and invite the client to come up with categories to put around the wheel that pertain to their life and work. So relationship, career, finances, leisure, self-development, professional development, whatever's important to them, whatever's currently important to them, and put those categories around the wheel, and then have them rate the level of current satisfaction with those categories. And then of course ask them to choose a pivotal area that if they increase satisfaction just a notch in one of those areas, or 2, even 3, it would have an overall positive impact on the entire system. And then you get some action steps to serve that, confirm them, ask for the value, and share appreciation. If you use this process, the life balance wheel, as part of your opening intake session, you can revisit it. You keep a copy of the wheel, your client keeps a copy, and you revisit it in 3 months and re-rate the sections of the wheel with the same categories. And it's really amazing because the client notices that even those areas that they weren't putting attention on in the coaching sessions have increased in satisfaction. And the theory behind that is that this is an intentional exercise, and you're asking your coachee to put their conscious attention on raising certain areas, but the deeper knowledge system, our deeper, wiser self, wants us to fill in all the areas, increase satisfaction in all areas. So that happens on another level, you could argue. So there you have it, the prioritization wheel exercise, where it fits into the coaching arrow, the steps. There's a video that has a demo of it that you can follow along with next, and also the variation, the life balance wheel that I offered at the end here. I hope this has been useful, and thank you.